the moqueca, the monkey in Brazil, I had that energy and they're frightened of that. And it's not really frightened, they just have an understanding that whatever I'm connected to has a little more strength and reverence, and they just kind of keep a distance from that. So with you, because again, it came in a wave with you. It was interesting. It was all night. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I didn't realize it until it happened. I was like, oh Lord. The algorithm on my phone was like gorillas, monkeys, like big things, big mouths over there. I was like, oh, that's right. Okay. And I asked you some questions before to ask you because I'm always interested in your Chinese astrology. And you let me know that your Chinese zodiac is a monkey. Okay. So
Yeah.
you already carrying that energy on you, along with a little bit of, well, a lot of that Scorpion, Scorpion King energy as well. Um, so I want to kind of touch on that a little bit because I was fascinated and I really want to know your take on it. I'm really curious. And I told you I have a curiosity and I've never really talked to you before. So I get to
Mhm.
ask you all the fun questions that I only want to ask you. So,
Okay.
so when we're thinking about the monkey, the gorilla beings, the Hunan, which is really the Hindu god, the gorilla god. Can you give us a little information on that god? Because that is something that's here. It's always been here. And I want to kind of touch that with you and then talk about some things that are going on that I think is coming in the field that has to do with those beings.
Okay, so the gorilla key is called the primate key. In every major landmass where there's a river basin forest is called a Congo region. In South America, it's the Amazon. In North America, it's the Mississippi. In Africa, it's the Nile, and it's another river called the Zambezi, I think, that has a Congo basin, right? This is the symbolism um, in totem animal magic. The gorilla symbolizes the father that looks over the family,
Mm.
right? And that's what's called the gorilla key. We also call the gorilla key the fuck it key. And what that means is when you did everything reasonably possible for you to do, just say fuck it. Because then now you let the universe have it, and the universe is going to make the adjustments to whatever errors you had and correct it and solve the problem for you. So when you get to Hanuman, right, Hanuman literally translates into English as handyman.
Yeah.
And his reputation is Hanuman completes all tasks, no task too big, no task too small. If you want the problem solved, you give it to the Hanuman,
Mm.
right? In China, he's called Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, right? And the Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, the legends say he was trapped in the Stone Mountain for 500 years until Titicaca came and spoke the sacred incantation to release him.
Mm.
Where else do you hear something about something being hewn from a mountain? Book of Daniel.
Hmm.
The final blow to the Babylonian Empire. A single stone hewn from the side of the mountain. The side of the mountain is symbolic to the government, right? Mountains represent governments in the biblical literary metaphor. So one individual will be separated from the rest of the society in order to solve the problem of bringing down the Babylonian Empire by striking the feet of iron and clay.
Mm. Which is,
Right.
I got it. Wait, just because when you said that, the clay, you said that, say that again, that last thing you said?
The stories say that a single stone was hewn from the side of the mountain
Yeah.
and it struck the Babylonian Empire in the feet, made of iron and clay.
Interesting. Because the Jewish people call people golem, which are like clay people. And
Yeah,
then,
Gulam is the fabricated human with the incantation to the forehead to animate him.
mm,
Right. This is why in law human beings are called monsters.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right. That's what they're talking about. A made being, a being made from the dirt of the earth, a Gulam.
Golem, yeah. Why I mentioned that, as you said, the feet and then the mountains, because Hermon, Mountain of Hermon over in Syria was just conquered by the Jewish people, Israelis. And it's
Mhm.
interesting that you said that. I'm just, go ahead.
Now, you got to also remember Mount Hermon is supposed to be the place where Semyaza and his cohorts made the agreement
Mhm.
to subjugate the people of the earth.
Yes, yes,
Well, these were in the Sumerian tablets, those were called Igigi.
yes.
Okay, now you had another mountain over there, they call it Sinai, CNAI. Sin, when they call you a sinner, they telling you that you are a practitioner of Babylonian rites of sin. Why do they call them the rites of sin? They was written by a Babylonian son of Enlil named Ninursin. And anybody practicing these blood rituals, money magic, sex magic, according to the Babylonian tradition, is a perpetual sinner
Mm,
because you born in sin. I mean, you born into these customs and you don't know what you practicing. To be sure that you a sinner, they make sure you practice something called a Eucharist
mm.
or a
Yeah,
communion. That's
yeah.
a simulated blood ritual.
The Catholics, ways of the Catholic. Yeah, you take the
Yeah.
flesh is the wafer and the blood of Christ is the wine. Yes.
Simulated cannibalism.
Hmm. Absolutely.
That's a blood right ritual. It's not haphazard. They know what they doing.
Absolutely.
They not gonna do it the same as you gonna do it because they just trying to. They got the little priest up there. He don't know what he doing. He think he really following something, but the Pope know what's up.
I know that's
Well,
right.
used to be popes. Now that robot that they calling the Pope now, he know what's up. He's a whole android that they put under the bed at night.
Woo! They fold them up and put them under and just take them out and turn on the battery. Turn it.
They
Okay.
don't even use him on a day-to-day basis. They probably use him probably a couple times a month.
They're trying to conserve energy, Rod. We're in that green energy time, So we're doing. We have to
Conservation
expand.
of energy, energy conservation. Anyway, so the legend of the Monkey King Hanuman, okay, when he was in the form of Sun Wukong, he was unruly, difficult to control. So the Buddha gave Tipikaka a ring to put on his head to block his psychic abilities
Mhm.
so she can control him. If she say a certain incantation, the ring crushes his head energetically and stops him from doing whatever he's doing.
Wait, hold. Is that the reason why people wear crowns, metal crowns? Is it a form of mind control programming? Is that why or
Mm-mm.
no? Okay, okay. Just go ahead. I'm sorry.
The crown is that's a Babylonian symbol as well of rulership. Over here, we didn't use gold crowns. We used stuff
Feather.
related to nature
Yeah, feather, pine cones, things of that nature.
and animal skins.
Yeah.
Right.
Horns.
So the chiefs depend what they were for identifiers depend on what was their tribal totem animal
Hmm.
and what was the root tribe they was from. Like when you see Big Tookie, that big 6'4", 280-pound, all muscled with that big old afro, this is so his soldiers can see him on the battlefield. No
Ooh,
matter where they at, they know where he at. And as long as they see him, they gonna fight to the bitter end. You can't stop one of them from fighting. Those are called Afro chiefs, right? That's an old Mississippian practice. Those were tribes that used to live in tree scaffoldings across the South. They chopped down all the trees to get them out of
yes.
the
My
trees.
grandmother actually meant she was 104 and she mentioned something about them people living in the trees and something about
Mm-hmm.
that's why some of the trees were burned down or they did milling at the time in that area specifically because of those people. She mentioned that
Yeah.
years ago when I was a little girl. Yeah.
And then the ones that lived in the swamp, they wore animal skins, mainly the alligator. They came from in Egypt is known as the Sobek priests. They used to ride alligators into combat in Florida That's why they start gator baiting the children to make the gators interested in the flavor of the people that they didn't eat.
Oh, I know that's right. Woo.
They even have old pictures of us. They didn't change and whitewash the imagery now, where these people that rode the alligators is pale faced. But that's not true. That was us. And the big mamas used to get the what they call the anointed oil from the alligator. It's the sacred elixir. It's a gold color oil, look like olive oil, to anoint the next chief. In spiritual practice, you know that you can use what's called a reasonable substitute when the actual thing is not available. They came over here as vampires, bloodsuckers, and cannibals.
They still are.
We was already here wearing wolves, so they called us werewolves. And they say we look like kin, but we not, so they called us lichens.
Mm. God, Rod.
So they tell us a story in the movies, and they called the movies the Twilight, where the ones that you see native turning into wolves, but the ones that came from Europe is all vampires. They telling you the story.
They do. The natives were the wolves. Yes, yes. And the others
And
were the vampires. Yeah. And they
right.
used to,
Now, this is how
yeah.
you know that the vampires wasn't pale. When they got into the sun, they skin glistened like crystals.
Yeah.
That's called prismatic melanin, according to Dr. Phil Valentine.
Mm.
But they can trick you with cinema by whitewashing the characters, so you don't even know what prismatic melanin is, so you will never make the correlation.
Interesting.
You see, a good example is Brother Kalai. Brother Kalai up in Philadelphia, in the summertime when he's standing in the sun, you can literally see it look like he got tiny crystals in his skin.
I've seen people like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
But he
usually,
wanted he wanted Earthborn,
yeah.
right? But a lot of the stuff we don't know about our history, and it's been told to us in a upside down, backwards fashion to confuse us as to who we are. So we will never exercise our birthright to reclaim and restore might, justice, balance, equilibrium back to the land, the people. In order to do this, you need a certain type of government.
Mhm.
We call it the tribal government, the great law,
Yes.
the way of the mother. We don't call it patriarchy. We call it the way of the mother. The way of the mother became Europeanized as a term called matriarchy,
Yeah.
but it literally the way of the mother. The mother is the nurturer in the household, but she can't nurture if she had war.
Well, also they decapitate her from the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. She's no
Mm-hmm.
longer even present in the prayers or the concept of, being in
But
that
she's
community.
ever present. She's just concealed. That's why they call it the concealed mother
Mhm.
or the hidden goddess in masonry. Hold on, let me show you something.
Yeah. Y'all give Rod Hayes, like, he is, Fleur Ronan is like in like intellectual heaven. He is such a wonderful, like, wisdom bearing. Oh wait, Freemasonry and the Hidden Goddess. I've never seen that book before, Rod.
It's
Who wrote
just
that
one
book?
of them. It's Freemason and the hidden goddess. She's hidden in plain sight though, and I'm gonna tell you how to find her. Get you a Strong's exhaustive concordance of the Bible and look up the name Jesus.
Mm.
Remember, the letter J 500 years old.
Mhm.
Now, go to the laws of grammar. Write the word according to phonetics,
Mhm.
and you will come up.
Jesus.
It's no Y. It's Greek, not Hebrew.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
The New Testament was not written in Hebrew.
You're right.
It was originally written in Greek, and it's Iesous.
Oh my God.
Now
What?
look, unto us a child is given, unto us a son is born, and we shall call his name Emmanuel. How many times did they call him Emmanuel in the story?
My mind is blown. I did. Oh my God. What? So Jesus, Emmanuel was the name previous to what they perceive as Jesus. That was never Jesus, was just a
The
fictitious.
story of Isis and Horus told to us by a fiction writer by the name of Josephus Flavius. It's just that when the Constantinian Nicene Council got a hold of it, they had to try to figure out how to separate the mother, the most important character in the Bible, away from the son. So they give all the glory to the son, and it's gonna piss the son off because you denying his mama was rightfully hers.
That's right.
And they teaching these people to follow Emmanuel under the mama name Isis, but they gave it a J in order to confuse the mind and the psyche. But when they gave it the J, they called it the fish hook, because I shall make you fisher of men. And ain't no man gonna catch more men than a woman. Let that sink in. Ain't no man gonna catch more men than a woman.
Y'all, you gotta please give a 13 to the, oh my God, this is amazing. I never
13 is the
saw.
queen mother's seal, the mother of the
That's right.
king.
That's right.
But the king had to emerge as a prince first before he ascended the throne as the king. And there is no man that's a kingmaker. Every kingmaker is a woman.
Absolutely. Yes.
You can't be the king unless you crown by the woman. Go back and look at David when he was laying in his deathbed and one of his sons declared himself the king. And Bathsheba came to him and said, you know, your son that ran around out there, he think he done just took over, you still living. And it offended David. And David said, well, what do you reckon I should do? He said, you should crown Solomon. He the wisest of them all. So David called all of his staff in there and say, when I cross over, I'm leaving the throne to Solomon. It can be even you can even go back before that. When Esau and Jacob was wrestling over the birthright in the womb and they came out, the mama took side with Jacob, but the rightful heir was Esau. Esau mean earthborn.
Hmm.
Jacob mean underminer,
Hmm.
right? So the mother dressed the Jacob up because Isaac was blind. He put her on a fur coat and she cooked Esau's soup that he cooked for his father. And it tasted just like his soup. So who he learned to cook it from? And she sent Jacob in with his fur coat on and a bowl of soup to get the blessing from his father to run the kingdom. But he had to pretend to be Esau.
Mm.
It goes back before that. In the Adam and Eve story, when Cain slew Abel, right? Cain was slew Abel out of jealousy, but what was he jealous for? He was the one who came with the meat because he was a farmer and he was a herdsman, and Abel was the farmer who grew the vegetables. And they liked the vegetables more than they liked the meat, so it offended Cain. So he caught his brother in the field and killed him.
Mm.
Right. So then the Eve prayed according to the text, and she was given Seth.
Yes.
Right. And she said, today we will call his name Seth, for the Lord has granted my prayer and gave me a replacement for Abel. It's all in there.
I think, there was a debate. It wasn't really a debate. You would have been the appropriate person to deal with some people who had some biblical information, but you would have been the appropriate. um participant in such a conversation. You've gotten information like for days, just archives, just it's amazing.
Yeah. The reason I don't do debates for two reasons. One is I got to use somebody else's reference.
Absolutely. I,
And most of the people that we reference is secret society. Second one is
mm,
when you
mm,
tell somebody you getting information from a psychic source, you automatically invalid.
absolutely. They always say it's not even legitimate. Yeah.
Because we can't cross-reference psychic information. We can only cross-reference what somebody else said a long time ago,
Hmm.
right? Then you got to go by it. Even if you use modern judicial standards, the courts tell you eyewitnesses are not always reliable.
Not at all.
You have
Perspective,
20 people watch the same event and they gonna give you 20 different stories.
absolutely.
So how do I know who to accept as an accurate source? If it's not a direct source, it's not accurate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, when you go look at the history of the Bible, ask yourself who wrote it and how do you know who wrote it?
No one was there to reference
No,
it. Yeah.
nobody's here that was there to tell us who wrote it,
Yeah. We have
right?
to listen to those styrofoam cups and listen to the general consensus of each generation that gives us. And then speaking another language, you already know when we translate the language, you always lose like part of the translation is always non-accurate. Yeah.
That goes to part of the grand deception of the biblical. Christianity was the first religion. It's only three religions, and they all monotheistic Judeo-Christian religions, and that's Christianity, Judaism, and Islam.
Hmm.
And that's the order that they was presented to the public. Judaism is not older than Christianity. It was the convenient backstory for the rebels who didn't want to go with the story as it was given, right? So if you go back to the time frame of the life of the so-called character they call Jesus, right? And they say he existed between 3 AD and 37 AD or something like that, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay, now at that time, who was ruling in Egypt?
Pharaoh?
Cleopatra.
You're right. You're right.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Where's Cleopatra's tomb? Okay, let me put this another way. When the woman is in charge of the governments of Egypt, what was she called by the people of the land?
I don't know.
She was called by two terms. She was either referred to as Aset
Yes.
or Marie.
Yes.
In English, it would be Isis or Mary.
Yes. Because Mary was
Hail
the
Mary,
replacement
Mother
God.
of God.
Yes. Yes.
How in the hell is you the mother of God and you ain't God?
Mm.
You can't birth something greater
You
than
can
you.
birth God if you're not a God yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only goddess can birth a God. Yes.
Right. So now, if you go back to the contemporary time and you look at the other events of the era that we given along with this doctrine, you're going to notice that Cleopatra was said to be, she was supposed to die in her maiden chamber at the, by Death Adder. Now, also in that time, you had two warring factions of priests that started the war started in the reign of King Tut, which made him have to be ushered into hiding. And these warring priest factions was called Amun priests and Atian priests. The ideology difference is the Amun priests said, conceal your inner light. Do not let the world know of your divinity. Right? Pretend to be like everybody else and live high on the hog. The Atian priest was like, no, if you got the God gene and you got the God power, shine your light into the world. Remember this parable about the candle under the basket?
Yes. Yeah.
right? And then he say, when these two eyes become one, and then you become the light of the world. Gerald Massey wrote the book Ancient Egypt, Light of the World.
Yes, yes.
Okay, now when we looking at Cleopatra, they saying she died in her maiden chamber at the hands of the adder, but they don't have her tomb.
They
They don't have
don't.
her grave site.
They
They don't know
don't.
where she went. She disappeared from the face of the earth 3 days after she died. Do the
Until you
math.
asked that question, I had no clue. I always thought it was there, but no, we have no reference to it ever.
So Cleopatra is actually a confusion of terms. And it's if you look at it masonically, it literally says see Leo, the panther. This makes you addicted to the cat. You become a cataholic. A cataholic is a Catholic. The Pope sits under the sacerdotal seat, but the sacerdotal seat is the seat of Vatica, the goddess, who was called Vatica in Greek, but she was called Auset in the Kemetic language,
Yeah.
right? Jacob is the underminer. The Pope sits under her seat. Let's do the math. The math be mathing if you know if you know all of the equations.
Y'all.
Okay, now Cleopatra mysteriously disappeared. You go to Australia now, because in Australia there's a legend about a woman came from Egypt running from assassins across the Queen's land. The same imagery that they drew in their petroglyphs on their stones
Mhm.
was a woman holding a baby that looked just like the Black Madonna and Child.
Oh my,
So
oh my God.
they used, okay, go to the movie The Serpent and the Rainbow for the reference for what I'm about to tell you next.
Okay.
The
Everyone,
priesthood
everyone
knew
get
how to sedate you where you have no vitals,
yeah, listen
right?
to the dust, that magic, the dust.
Mm-hmm. So they need to get Cleopatra from under the Roman rulership. The only way to get her out of there is to feign her death.
So you're saying Cleopatra faked her death and was relocated?
Yeah. When she left Australia, she sailed to South America and they migrated all the way up into North America. The tribes was concealing them the whole way. This is your Sun Wukong's journey to the west. Nazca lines are eagle and the monkey, the phoenix and the monkey. How is Sun Wukong supposed to get to the west from India and Africa in the way? Now, we know this to be valid because
I gotta take a deep breath. Like you're blowing my mind, and I'm just like my brain is like tweaking. Hold on, Rod. You can't deliver information like listen. Hold the hold the monkey. Hold on. Let me take a deep breath. Y'all, I hope y'all ready. I hope you got like listen. You have me in such a state of like mental, intellectual euphoria. I'm bugging out. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. Okay. I think I'm there. Go ahead, Rod. Go ahead.
okay, so now and what we know today is the Grand Canyon has the oldest sacerdotal seats of the earth.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. And we
Temple
just,
of Isis, Temple of Tahuti.
yes.
Now, there has to be a way where the ancestors leave us to reclaim everything. We call it the redemption process. How do you get from under admiralty jurisdiction and get back to the jurisdiction of the land? That's the great dilemma that we in, because everybody from your militia, Montana militia, to your Archway law, to your sovereign citizens, to your Moorish paradigm, they all trying to get from under admiralty jurisdiction, but they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They keep using the admiralty rulings in order to try to force them to acknowledge their own rules.
Yes.
They don't
Yes.
acknowledge their rules when it apply to us.
Not at all. Not at
They
all.
only acknowledge them when it's to their benefit. That's why you have so many innocent people in prison. They don't care nothing about you screaming innocent. They don't care. Don't mean nothing to them. Everybody innocent according to them. That's what they tell you. Everybody in prison say they innocent. I ain't tell nobody that BS. I was guilty of sin. But I had a valid reason though. But I didn't never tell them. So they didn't never know. Right? So in the challenge to admiralty jurisdiction, you have to go back to your own cultural, historical record of oral tradition. In modern law tells you the parameters for what you call a oral law enforcement. It has to be in the public domain in a timestamp archivable format. Social media meets the criteria for public notice.
Sure. Sure.
The next thing you have to know in your public notices is who did it? The Dirty Moors. Where they come from? Europe. They got exiled, kicked out, came over here. Under the who told them to come over here? It was the discovery doctrine of the Pope and the papal bulls of the several popes before that. Right? Okay, so now we know who did it and where they came from and who sent them. Why did they come over here? Because when they brought them to the earth, wherever the hell they came from, other dimension, other planet, other somewhere, they didn't have a home nowhere on the planet.
No.
Okay, now that brings about a question that any sane person would ask. Well, where the hell they come from and how did God create somebody that don't got a homeland? We had a homeland. They want our homeland.
I have some theories to that, but you know.
Right. So now we hear about the Jewish God telling them he promised them a homeland. Mm-hmm. But if he's a righteous God, he doesn't have to take anything from anybody to give his people a homeland. He would have created them where they're supposed to be and left them there.
Well, that's what the Orthodoxy, a segue of the Orthodoxy Hasidite community believe, that they aren't supposed to go to Israel. They're supposed to roam until such time.
Okay, now that takes you to the book of Job. Where cometh